Hello, I am Dr. J. Namrata Manohar, retired Deputy Manager, Hindustan Cables Limited, Hyderabad. Post my voluntary retirement from Hindustan Cables Limited, I have served as Principal, Dean, Head of the Department of Electrical Engineering in several engineering colleges. In this seminar, I will be presenting the tips to master computer programming. Whichever computer programming you may be learning, you must seek answers to these particular questions. Now, let us see what are the questions. For effective learning, you may keep a notebook, a pen, and a dictionary beside you because you will be wanting to know the meanings of certain English words used in the computer programming. Now, what you should know? You should seek answers to the following questions. Level 1, Preliminary Information Questions. The preliminary information questions are obtaining the language introduction by the following questions. Now, what are these questions? We should know the name of the language. We should learn the correct spelling of the language and know whether the name is written in an abbreviated form as COBOL, which stands for Common Business Oriented Language, or is it written in a full form as Java. The second question is learn its correct pronunciation. You should learn the correct pronunciation of that language name. Then study the history behind the name of the language. That is why the language was developed, for what purpose it was developed. Why is the language given that name? We should know why the language is given that particular name. Now, next, who invented it? Where it was invented, we should learn. What is it mainly used for? That is, what is the area of application for which it was developed? That is, whether it is used as a general purpose language for developing front end or back end applications, or can be used for scientific applications or business applications, or it is used for teaching purpose in educational institutions. The next question is, what is the version of the language? That is, what is the present version in use and what are the previous versions? When was this particular language first developed? So next, what are the hardware and software requirements for the particular language, so that you know which system you can use for that particular language. Then, what are the important features of that particular language? These are the questions we should seek answers to. Set 2 questions. These questions are related to obtaining the language startup information. Now, what are these questions? 11th question. Is the language assembly language which is written in mnemonics, or it is a high level language? Assembly language is written in mnemonics and it is called as middle level language. High level languages are user friendly. The 12th question, is the language compiler based or interpreter based? 13th, is the language command oriented or menu driven? 14th, is the language procedural oriented or object oriented? 15th, does the language support modularity, reusability, extendability? Is it platform independent, and is it maintenance and security provision provided? These will enable us to learn and develop the language effectively for the correct application. 16th, what are the list of commands for using that particular language? Now, the commands are, first and foremost, we know you have to create a file. So, what is the command to create a file? What is the command to execute the file? Command to rename a file. Then command to copying a file, that is, you want to make another copy. Then command to modify the file, command to delete a file, and command to view the output of the particular file. 17th, which editor does the language use? 18th, what is the program structure? Only if you know the program structure, you will be able to write your programs. 19th, What is the process of creating and executing the program? 20th. What are the various files created during the process? That is object file, execution file, etc. Set 3 questions. These questions are related to obtaining the language grammar rules. The questions related to the language grammar rules are: what is the character set supported by the language? We know that every language is constructed only using alphabets. Just as in English we have A, B, C, D, and Telugu and Hindi we have I, E. So also every computer language has a character set. So we should learn the character set. 22. What are the various data types? That is, what is the type of the data, what is the size of the data, what is the range, and how is it is represented. We know that computers are used for data processing. So how you can store the data, that is whether in numerical form or floating. And as you know, every alphabet occupies certain number of bits in the computer. So for effectively utilizing the memory and transferring the data, we need to know what is the data type, say integer, float, or character or string. 23rd. What are the various keywords? There are certain words in the computer programming which are reserved for certain purposes. You should use those only for that particular purpose. So we should know what are the various keywords so that you don't inappropriately use those words. 24th. How are the variables and constants represented? You can have variables and constant. Variable is that which changes its value during the execution, and constant is that which has a fixed value. 25th. How are executable statements and non-executable statements identified? Is the language free form or case sensitive? How are the statements terminated? How are the global and local constants identified? What is the operator precedence? What are the various built-in functions and how are they invoked in the program? How to obtain answers to these questions we will be seeing in my next episode. Set 4 questions. These questions are related to the language mathematical control structure, rules to be followed. Now, what are these questions? First, what are the various operators supported? See, we have these various types of operators as arithmetic operators to perform arithmetical operations, then relational operations, logical operators, assignment statements, conditional operators, increment and decrement operators, bitwise operators, special operators. Now, the type of these operators varies from language to language. Some languages may have all these and some may have much more than this. So we should study what are the various operators supported by that particular language. Now next, how are expressions represented and evaluated? Now just as in mathematics you have the Bodmas principle, in computer programming also we will have a set of rules. So we should know how the mathematical expressions are represented and how they are evaluated so that you get the correct answer. 33. What are the various decision making and branching structures? Now, for example, we have structures as if statement, if else statement, if else ladder, switch statement, ternary operator. So these help us to develop an effective programming which can be used for several applications and input data. 34. What are the various decision making and looping structures? The syntax. The decision making structures are while statement, do while statement, for statement. As again said, some computer programs are limited to these or they may have much more than these type of structures. 35th. What are the various jumping structures? Example, go to statements. 36. How are the characters and strings represented? So we should know how are the characters and strings represented. 37th. How are arrays handled? Arrays are used to process large amount of data of the same type. For example, the details of the students in a particular class, right? So we need to know how arrays are declared, how they are initialized, how the elements can be accessed, and how they can be manipulated. 38. What are the input statements? How do you give input data? Now you want to multiply two numbers. How do you give the two numbers? Or you want to process the details of the marks secured by 60 students in a particular class. So how do you give the marks of the 60 students in the various subjects? Now, what are the output statements? Now, the output statement will depend upon how you, what type of output you want. It is what data you want and what format you want in the output in. So, based on what data you want in the output and in what format you want, you will be writing these output statements. 40th, how are user-defined functions defined and declared? To make work easy, every computer language has built-in functions such as mathematical functions. Now, apart from that, sometimes based upon your requirement, you may want to write your own functions. So, we should know whether the particular language will support the user-defined functions or no. Level 2 is the advanced concept questions. The advanced concept questions enable us to know about memory management, data management, and file management concept of the particular language. The first question is, does the language support memory management? If so, how will it support? Now, does it have file handling features? If it has, what type of files can be created and what is the syntax for creation and use of the files? Third, does the language support creation of user-defined data types? Fourth, does the language support data management? Fifth, how can records be represented? Sixth, any other new and specific feature of the language based upon the requirement. You should develop the aptitude to explore the language and seek answers to these questions and apply them in your daily life. Thank you.